Hello. We are live again, and it's Sunday, 2 p.m. And I go live every Sunday at 2 p.m. for now. We're gonna see. I wanted to talk about these weird alien thingies that Mexico's put out that apparently we're supposed to believe. I'll get to that in a minute. So if you're new here, you have to be a subscriber for 5 minutes to contribute to the chat. But yeah, welcome to my channel if you're new, and welcome back if you're not. So we talk about truth, anything truth related, anything you have burning in your truth loving minds that you want to talk about, and anything that's going on with you, anything you've come across that you want to discuss, anything you're dealing with. My main focus is beyond the duality, syncretism, mysticism, esoteric, decoding, Ascension, that sort of stuff. So that's my main area of focus, but everything is welcome here. If you want to talk about conspiracies, that's welcome too. So if you're here, say hello, let me know you're here, and let everybody else know you're here. So yeah. Like Mexico put out this weird looking alien, like 2 alien looking things. And, I'm only talking about this because it happened this week. It's something to talk about. It's just to get the discussion going. This isn't really my main area of focus, but it's entertaining. What I find staggering is how many people believe that they're real. It's kind of shocking. And the way that the mainstream, even NASA, is sort of entertaining the possibility of it being real, which is shocking. I saw a clip this morning. It was like the media interviewer was asking NASA like what we're supposed to think of these people, and you know what we think of NASA. What we're supposed to think of these alien bodies that they presented in Mexico. And the reporter was practically laughing and kind of hinting without saying that we're not supposed to take these seriously, right? But NASA's response was, taking the issue seriously, saying basically, well, when you present something like this, you find something like this, you want to present it to the world, but we need to do some tests first. And my only evidence of it has been on Twitter, so I can't really say either way. I mean, come on. You don't need a body of experts to tell you that it's nonsense. And that was another thing I found shocking, is how many people are quick to say, oh, this was debunked in 2021 by so-and-so and so-and-so. They did x-rays on it, showed that the bones were not real, and they were, cut in half and placed upside down and this sort of thing. You don't even need that to know that it's not real. But it seems like a lot of people do need somebody else to debunk it for them. Nolan Owen, hello. So I find that kind of surprising, that people can't even trust their own senses. You can't even trust that what you see is absurd. You have to wait for some other experts to prove whether it is legitimate or not. It's kind of shocking. And anybody who suggested that they were not legitimate in some of these posts, there were people there to rally against those people, saying that 20 university institutions had run tests on them to determine that it was non-human. Well, non-human could be anything. It could be animal, it could be mineral, it could be plant, it could be rock. So to say that it's non-human doesn't mean that it is an alien entity. So there's a lot of this kind of talk going on where the way that it's positioned is like, well, it's factually true. It is non-human, but they're not saying, well, it's non-human, but it's rocks. It's non-human, but it's plaster of Paris. It's paper mache. So yeah, it's non-human, but that doesn't classify it as alien, right? So, hello. If you're here, say hi. So yeah, I found it funny. And hello, eternal being, Andrea. They say whatever will sell more ad space in newspapers. They always have. Happy Sunday, aliens. Yeah, hello. So, yeah, I mean, the media is really quite a joke lately. A lot of the things. Hello, Rod. So, yeah, like the media is quite a joke. Like all of the stuff that they're saying or not saying or alluding to that is ridiculous. But anyhow, back to the alien thing. It was quite funny because I brought it up to my parents, and my mom hadn't heard anything about it because it's not on mainstream TV. It's only on the internet. And so my mom like occasionally watches stuff through the internet, mostly through my dad. They'll sit there and they'll listen to like Jordan Peterson or whatever, and then discuss it. And this is how they're sort of getting the truth leaked to them, like the oddities of this world. And so my dad had heard of them, and he he started laughing, and he's like, yeah, it looks like paper mache and it looks like clay and there's a bunch of sand sprinkled on top of it. So it seems like the reason they brought it out was because it was in time with what's happening with Biden. Biden, there's talk of him being impeached, and there's talk of a charge being laid against his son for firearms, for lying about his application, so that it's like some sort of distraction from that. And you think, well, why go to such lengths to talk about something like this that was debunked a couple of years ago, and it was presented to the Mexican government? Like, it's in Mexico, it's a completely different government, but a completely different country, and yet they're saying that this is being used to distract. Well, I guess the media just sort of picks up anything and talk about anything or use anything to distract. But we know they're all connected anyway. Someone called them paper machalians. Oh, that's a good term. Hello, Light. Yeah, if you're here, say hi. Let us know you're here. But I did find it funny that my dad had heard about it and he saw right through it and realized that it was nonsense. But I don't know. It's just so odd. Has anybody come across anyone in reality who believes they're real? Joseph, hello. So what's your experience been with this story? Because reading the comments from people and how they, there's some people who, no matter what, they want to believe in aliens. And so any suggestion of aliens, they're going to hold on to it and run with it. And it doesn't even matter whether it's legitimate or not, which, I don't know, just seems odd to me. Glad to catch this live stream again. Hey, Ryan, good to see you. yeah, it just seems like a lot of people are just eager to latch on to any evidence. I don't know. It just seems so ridiculous. But why? The last couple of months, there's been a big emphasis on the alien thing. We've been talking about it here. Hey, Adam, good to see you. We've been talking about the alien thing here. It's been tied to a lot of airplane events, which is odd. And, I look at it as the story, and what's the story reflecting back to us? What's it telling us? Not legitimately like the media is talking about aliens and that there's aliens or anything, but it could lead to some kind of story. So it could lead to something bigger. I mean, it sounds like something bigger is coming because they keep talking about it. It sounds like they're building to something. Like, why all of a sudden are they talking about all this disclosure from the United States government and now the Mexican government? And I do recall somebody saying something about the United States government creating a website about alien information. I saw it in brief passing, but anyway, if that's the case, there's additional information they're going to share about all of this stuff. So it's building. Now, in Discord, we talked about, some people in the Discord group had been talking about, well, if aliens appear, we manifested them. I mean, we're talking about it, the news is talking about it, people are talking about it. And as I've talked about aliens before, to me, it's an allegory. It's not, alien just means stranger, foreign, or, you're from somewhere else. So if you're in Canada, for example, somebody from the United States being here would be a foreigner, therefore they'd be an alien. That doesn't mean that they're an alien from outer space or anything like that, or from another world or anything. But they, this could be about another world. If you've ever been to Mexico, they sell lots of clay souvenirs. It looks like one of those from the movie E.T. I have been to Mexico many times, and they do have, like I had a clay, it was a sun and a moon put together, and they had a lot of wooden masks as well. They do a lot of wood carvings and stuff. So yeah, I haven't seen any aliens that I remember, but it does not surprise me that they would have aliens. My theory as of now is they make the space launches look ridiculous on purpose. They want us to question it and say we can't go anywhere. Well, we can't go anywhere. The reason for that, maybe they can go somewhere and we aren't invited. Well, it depends on how you look at it, in the sense that we can get out of here. But the majority, the thing is, okay, so like the more you focus on certain things and the more your perspective changes, the more you sort of come full circle. So to the normies, the space program is legitimate. They don't think it looks absurd. They think it looks real. They look at the rockets and they see them go into space and they see space pictures, and even though they're drawings, they rationalize it in their brain that somehow this is a real thing. They take it seriously and they legitimately think we can leave. They legitimately think that we can travel into outer space. We're the ones who think that we can't. We're the ones who think that this is a closed system, that we can't leave. And they've even said, NASA's even said, this is a closed system and we can't leave. So now, if I'm understanding you correctly, You're saying that they make them look ridiculous on purpose, but we're the only ones who can see that they're ridiculous. So the main normies can't see that they're ridiculous. So, you know, I don't know. It's an interesting theory, but I personally think we can't leave, but you can leave internally through the exit system, the Ascension system. So we're only here because of our minds, basically. Our subconscious priming our subconscious, our subconscious priming our subconscious to manifest them for some king or foreshadowed integration. Possibly. Outer space is an allegory of inner space. Yeah. We are the ones they need to fool on most of what we talk about. No, you got that backwards. They're not fooling you, you're fooling yourself. So I think you're kind of getting to a double somersault, double loop here, where you're doubling back on things. So you have the one story of the normies and falling for the deception, and then there's the truth, the conspiracy side, and then the truth is in the middle. And so if you're looking at it in terms of, they're trying to fool you twice or three times, like, I don't really follow. I don't even know how to articulate this. It's like you're saying they're trying to fool the people who have awakened by showing, I can't even wrap my head around it. The planets and stars are what we're made of and who we are. Yes. Hello, everybody. Don't forget to hit the like button. Thank you, Natasha. They are we. Yeah, like, you gotta, if you want to understand properly where we are and what's going on here, you have to stop looking at them as outside of you and them as a separate entity and them as the enemy, because that's not going to help you. And if that's the only way that you can perceive this, that's fine, but it isn't going to help you in your ascension process, which I would assume that's what you want to get out of it. Like, that's the path of the truth. So you want the truth to stop looking at things as physical and things as dual. And the only way to do that is to look at things from a higher perspective and recognize that the duality is an illusion. And I can understand that if you're on the other side of things where you're seeing things that way, the way I'm talking might sound like gibberish. It might sound like it doesn't make sense to you because you haven't seen it that way yet. So I'm doing my best to try to explain it so that if you are in that mindset, then you can find your way out of it. Because believing things, you are welcome to believe whatever you want to believe, but it doesn't serve you and doesn't help you in your ascension process if that's what you want. If you want to believe that there's an enemy outside of yourself, you're welcome to. But does it serve you? Is that what you want? The fact that there are people who know that that is not the case and know that there's liberation or freedom outside of that perception should tell you that there's more. And if you want to stay in this perception of us versus them, and they're an entity outside of yourself that's keeping you penned in with lies, even though you know other people see things otherwise, it's your choice. Hi, Trixie. Your mind isn't against you in your dreams. Your mind generates messages for you through your subconscious, even the weird and unsettling dreams. Yeah, I mean, your perception is what determines whether you are against something or for something, and then you are the one that makes it that way. So if you have this idea that that you have enemies, or that, I mean, we talked about this weeks ago with that gentleman who was in here claiming to be a targeted individual, and he got very upset, and due to his perception, that is how he sees things. He has decided that people are against him, or that he's being targeted. And I'll move this over to generalities and not him specifically. But if you decide that you're being targeted, if you decide there's somebody outside of yourself who's trying to get you or after you, or the elite are out to kill you, or they're trying to fool you, trick you, kill you, deceive you, then that's going to become your experience. So you're going to find things to support it. You're going to experience things that support it, but there's a way out of that. So do you want to choose to perpetuate that fear-based perception, or do you want to free yourself of it, is the question you need to ask yourself. If you want to stay there, you have every right to choose to stay there. I'm telling you, there's a way out of it. So yes, we're in a dream of sorts. So when you're in your dream, you experience all sorts of things. You can have a nightmare. You can have all sorts of horrible things happen in your dream. But when you come out of it and you realize it was just a dream, there was really nothing to be afraid of, because nothing can hurt you. It's just a dream. But you feel that it's real while you're dreaming it. And unless you wake up in your dream and realize that you are dreaming while you're dreaming. So the whole point of the experience we're going through right now is to realize that you are in a dream and you're dreaming. So take control of your dream. So yeah, if you recognize in your dream that it's just a dream, even though bad things are happening, even if good things are happening or weird things are happening, and you realize that it's a dream, you can start to control your dream. Because in realizing that it's just a dream, it starts to disintegrate the illusion and the power that it has. If you think back to the movie Labyrinth, she says, "You have no power over me," which breaks the spell, which was the phrase that she had trouble remembering from her play. And the whole thing of what we're experiencing here is to take your power back. And that doesn't mean losing the legal name or sending documents to the government and all that sort of nonsense. It means taking your power back and knowing who you really are. It means understanding that this is an illusion and taking control of your experience, because you are the one who's creating it, and you are the one who is experiencing it. So you can either be a dog and be led by it, and be led by your emotions, and be led by the 3D experience, or you can be a god and create it and take control of it and be autonomous. So the enemy outside of myself, yes, you have that correct. I am still there, but continually reevaluate things, and I'm willing to change course. That's good to know. I mean, that's a really good place to be. Willing to change course as more things open up to me. I've come a long way since the days of believing Fox News and the Republican Party. You have. And I remember, you were asking quite a few questions on my second channel with all the news decodes and everything, and you've moved past that point as well. So that's good too. And I understand too, like, from my interactions with you, you're very methodical in your thinking and observations, and you want to be sure before you move on to the next thing, which is totally understandable. But a lot of this world is not logical. There's a lot of creativity and imagination and magic and things that defy, the physical and defy logic and reason, that you could benefit from looking at those things to see evidence of those things so that you can incorporate that into your truth seeking, because like that's the feminine side. If you're very much into the masculine side of thinking in terms of like logic and evidence and science and proof, and you're looking very much to the 3D physical for the evidence, you're going to miss out a lot of things that are shown to you from the feminine side, which is intuition and creativity and magic, and so sort of more fluid and going with the flow. So you want to incorporate both of those. So this, you want to make sure you can start to look at the things that appear to you, and like practicing law of attraction would help, because then you can see the mind reality connection. So if you start to recognize how the mind creates your experience and see that connection, then you can start to open up a little bit more in the creative imagination area and the magic area. So yeah, I mean, it is a hard hurdle to overcome, especially if you're very much in the logic 3D, looking for evidence mindset. So also it's beneficial as well if you look within and look more. I'm not saying that this is what you're doing, because I don't know, but if or not doing, but if you look within and meditate more, it also helps open up the connection to the right side, to the feminine side, and start to see more metaphysical experiences, and that will help you too. So yeah, like the whole the whole enemy outside yourself is very compelling, because it's if you're very physically based, it's very difficult to grasp the concept that all is mind, that we create everything, and that we created this apparent enemy. It's an illusion that they're an enemy. And it's like, I've explained this before some time ago, but if you look at it this way, where at some point we fell in consciousness, which means that we forgot who we are. We're in somewhat of a sleep state of forgetfulness. And in order for us to do that, we had to bury the truth so that we could find it at some point in order to return home. It's buried treasure. So we had to put the truth somewhere. And we created the elite, or the gods above us, to hold that truth so that we could fall in consciousness, so that we could experience what it's like to be human and not know who we are. So if you can look at it that way, I mean, understanding that this is all a story, and everything is tied to the zodiac. It's a story. It's the story of the stars. It's a tarot play, and understand things in that way, as opposed to this sort of fragmented, disparate parts of the physical that have nothing to do with each other. The only thing to fear is fear itself, and you're the one who creates the fear, because the fear is you getting a feeling about something or being concerned that something is going to happen that hasn't even happened yet based on your thinking. And so you're the one who creates the fear. The fear isn't something outside of yourself, right? There isn't something that you can point at and say that that's fear. Fear is something you've created within you. It's a feeling. What's your perspective on entities, negative or positive? Are they just thought forms created by us? Yes. I mean, it depends on what you determine entities to mean. So there's the way I understand it and the way that I interpret it is that everything comes from the realm of thought. And, you can also ask, like, who's in control of your thoughts? Where did the thoughts come from? Who's controlling your attention? So those thoughts create forms, and those forms create entities. So whatever you give your energy and attention to creates this energetic body, and the more energy and attention you give to it, it becomes a form. So yeah, if you want to look at so if you look at it from this perspective, let's say if you're thinking of someone, I mean, how many times has this happened to you? If you're thinking of someone and then they call you and you haven't heard from them in months, but you think, oh, I wonder how Stephanie's doing. And within a few hours, Stephanie calls you and says, hey, how's it going? I was just wondering how you're doing. Do you want to get together for coffee? And so we are all connected. We're individual and connected. So your individuality matters, but we're all connected, just like in a dream. Even though you are the one having the dream, you still project these entities as if they are real beings to tell the story of what it is you need to work out in your head. And they embody these beings to do that, which is the play that we're in. And so here in this realm, on the grand stage of life, it's the same thing, only it's a little bit more organized. Okay. And so if you look at it in the sense that you had a thought of Stephanie calling you, and so that thought is connected to Stephanie, because essentially, like, you and Stephanie are one. So Stephanie calls you, and so you could say that there's a thought form that's linking the two of you with, hey, I wonder how Stephanie's doing. And then she gets the same thought. So, like, where does the thought come from? Is she thinking of you, or are you thinking of her, or is it both? So then she calls you. So in that sense, that's a thought form, but you can also make it even bigger in the sense of, like, if you're creating, say, a painting or a piece of music or a piece of writing, and when you, like, say, writing is a great example because you create characters, and when you're in the process of creating a story with characters, then you create these entities. Basically, these characters, they become entities in your head. And when you go to write the story, the better you've created these characters, the more realistic they are, then the story tends to write itself, because these characters sort of come to life. And then the more you put energy and attention into this book or into these characters, that book could become a movie. And then if it becomes a movie, then you have real life people playing the parts of these characters. And as I have put in my parallel universes video, these are actual parallel universes that exist. So it's almost like, where's the idea coming from? Did you create it, or was it already created? Are you just drawing from the universe and making it into a book to tell that person's story, or did you actually create it yourself? And then the movie with the people, you have real people acting it out, and then that gives form to those entities that you created. I did do a video some time ago about egregores and thought forms and, law of attraction, and all of that is all interconnected. It's all the same stuff. And I can't remember the name of the video anymore. I think it was back in 2019, 2020, something like that, before the event. But yeah, I made a video about that. There's a guy on the internet who talks about egregores a lot, but you can create an egregore to do things if you want to. Now, some people don't advise that you do that, but look into it if you're interested. As far as I'm concerned, the only thing you have to fear is fear itself. So it depends on how you go about it. If your intentions are ill-intended, then you're going to be creating out of fear or lack or viciousness or jealousy or those low vibrational thoughts and feelings. Then that could come back to bite you. Or if you create something to do something bad, mean, ill-intentioned, causes harm, those sorts of things, obviously they're going to come back to bite you in the butt. The point is that you can create egregores to do things. So the way that works is that you decide that you're going to create an egregore, and you give it energy and attention. And there's different ways of going about it, and some of them say that you should reward them or feed them something. So there's that as well. But that's like, you could feed them with gratitude or energy or whatever, just to keep them alive, so to speak. Like, if everything here is energy and you're giving something energy and attention, then that's something that's going to keep it alive, right? Even a house requires energy and attention to stay alive. If it becomes abandoned, the house falls to pieces. So there's all sorts of things here, and everything requires energy and attention in order to stay alive. So same goes for egregores, and you can create them to do a wide variety of things. You can create them to say, have them deliver truth to you. You can have them deliver pieces of information, or like kind of like an imaginary friend, but a little bit more sophisticated. So there's like a whole area in that zone of things you can do with egregores and entities and such. But if you're looking at things in terms of positive, negative, you can create a positive entity, you can create a negative entity. It's all depends on what you create it for. And so yeah, like it's probably also well, I was going to say something about ghosts, but I don't know enough to say anything. So I mean, when you think about Westworld, she said, Dolores said that you only exist as long as somebody remembers you. And so if we're in a dream within a dream, and people only exist as long as you remember them or somebody remembers you, then the idea that your loved ones who were here and they end up dying and you remember them, and then they still exist in sort of like the spirit world, but then you eventually let them go. So then they move on and you don't interact with them as much. So in my experience, like with Tara, when she died, I still talked to her. I interacted with her. I talked to her, and it was as if she was like on the phone with me. It was very realistic. I heard her. We were laughing. She would communicate with me through the radio, and then it came to a point where I was like, okay, I gotta let you go, and we gotta move on. And so I let it go, and those interactions didn't happen anymore. So is that a thought form or an egregore? It could be. Could look at it that way. Was it me talking to her spirit? Could be. I could be just connecting with the memory of her. Could be something like that. What's your perception on it? Does anybody else have an insight or opinion on it? It would be nice to be able to envision my favorite stock going to the moon, which would then allow me to head to Florida for the winter. I suppose it doesn't work that way. Well, you could imagine yourself in Florida. It doesn't matter how you get there. You don't need to figure out how. You don't need to figure out that it has to be a stock that rises up for you to be able to do that. Just picture yourself being in Florida for the winter and work on that. See how that works out. Adam, I wrote a screenplay about characters that gradually become self-aware that God is the writer of a storybook, me, and then flip the dynamic and start creating thoughts and write his script. The concept was totally divinely inspired. The author's life would face turmoil and it would change the world of the story. Floods would come because they were connected. Yeah. I mean, that's a great story. It sounds like the Bible. There's a few stories like that. Like the one story that comes to mind is Stranger Than Fiction with Will Ferrell. And he finds out that somebody's writing his life. So he contacts the writer, and it's quite a really good movie. So the other day I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was in the park talking about how weird this place is and how weird things are. And I thought, I was talking out loud, and I thought, well, what if there's like another me, like in Free Guy, where it's kind of like, what if this is a video game type of thing? And then there's another me on the outside that's playing with Avatar me and watching the video game, seeing me as the avatar start to become self-aware and say, well, what if like higher self me is watching this, freaking out because I'm talking about higher self me, and I'm aware that this person exists, and they must be freaking out right now. So, just the thought of it is kind of funny. But yeah, Adam, that sounds like a great story. It's kind of like Free Guy. Really is. Even the flood and everything with the tsunami company. Joseph, most people are sleepwalking and believe the media. With blockchain being implemented, I feel something bigger needs to happen in this realm for this new information age to begin. Oh, funny how you were just typing out Free Guy. And now some people will be triggered to awaken, but most will remain normies. Yeah. So there's like a couple of points in here. I mean, yeah, most people believe the media, which is still shocking. And even the alternative media, which is, I mean, it's a cesspool right now. And I've been talking about this since 2020, and I don't want to talk about it anymore because it's really negative. But people need reminding. and not very many people out there are talking about it. But there's a slew of people in the alt media, and I'm not talking about like the Russell Brands. I mean, he's mainstream alt media, and he's mainstream because he's still in Hollywood, yet he says he's not, but he's still in Hollywood. And I'm not talking about Joe Rogan. So there's the mainstream, then there's the mainstream alternative, and then there's the conspiracy theory realm alternative. That's what I'm talking about. Those people, they pop up to look like they're regular people, and then they feed you all sorts of junk. They feed you all sorts of conspiracy-minded crap, fear-based crap, and none of it's true. And it's kind of scary right now how much junk is out there, especially around Maui, which is one thing that I've discovered while I was doing the Maui decode. And there's so many lies, there's so much bullshit that people are taking as truth. I mean, just look at the blue things that don't burn garbage. Like, people are taking that as true. And it's confounding to me how many people lack critical thinking. Like, that's pretty basic stuff, that blue things don't burn thing. And it's, yeah, like even the Tiffany Gomez stuff, like I included in my video that I just released last week, which touches upon her story as a whole, that was put out not only by mainstream media, alt media, but conspiracy people and random TikTokers, that it was all over the place. And the Maui thing's all over the place too. It's usually these sorts of stories are in one place. It's mainstream media, and maybe other people talk about it, but it's usually mainstream media where you can get the whole story. But now it seems like everything's all over the place. It's all over the multi levels of media. And her situation with like that guy putting out his TikTok video, the Cole Show, and how he put out this video and he was like he flat out told people that this was made up, but people believed it. I mean, this is like, it's all of it, everything. Everybody's putting out all this nonsense, and yet people still believe it. They don't have any discernment. They don't have any critical thinking. They don't think about anything for 2 seconds. It's like going back to the aliens, like I was saying, that people require some sort of outside authority to tell them that these aliens are not real, when you can look at them and tell they're not real. Like, they require some sort of professional to tell them. Same with the event in 2020. They relied on some sort of professional to tell them what was what. And those professionals were lying to them, which I showed with the Kaufman and butt rash and, all of those fake doctors that came out making stuff up. You didn't need them to tell you. You could do your own research and tell, oh, but you're not a scientist. You're not a doctor. How are you supposed to know what's true and what's not? You have to rely on the science. So, and that goes for space, and that goes for every, aliens, space, anything that comes from them. You have to rely on them to tell you whether it's true or not. So, yeah, it's people relying on authority figures and believing the media. And yeah, so then you talked about blockchain. a few years ago, I was looking at all the blockchain stuff, and at first I was afraid of it, and then I got past the fear stage, and then I was looking into it, and I was like, okay, this is the future, this is where things are going. And I thought they were going to implement it back a few years ago, 2020, but nothing happened. And then 3 years later, Ripple lawsuit is over and nothing's happened. Nothing is happening. And also, having gone through using crypto and using supposed blockchain, I don't know what this blockchain is supposed to be, but it isn't what they say it is, at least not in certain platforms. It's supposed to be automated, and yet there's people behind it. It doesn't make any sense. Like, I was using Upland, and it's supposed to be on the blockchain. It's supposed to be automated. That's what blockchain is for. It's supposed to automate everything. But there's people manually processing stuff. You make a payment you go through the exchange for exchanging crypto to cash or cash to crypto, and there's people manually inputting stuff. How are we not past the manual input phase if we're going to blockchain, which is supposed to be automatic? It doesn't make sense to me. So, and the fact that we have to wait for transfers to be processed and they have to be manually processed doesn't make sense to me. It must be some sort of legal issue or something. But if that's the case, then what is blockchain? What is it? How is it automated? It doesn't make sense. And yet we have also e-transfers. Like, you can send money by email automatically with no human interference. What's wrong with that? And you can send money through PayPal, automatic, no human interference. Credit cards, automatic, no human interference. So I don't understand how this is supposed to work. And is it an illusion? AI seems to be an illusion. So what exactly is going on? I don't know. I know there's going to be some sort of change. We're supposed to move to digital everything, but I don't know. Is it a story? Is it just a ruse? I don't know. I kind of don't really pay attention to it anymore. But yeah, I do feel like if that's going to happen, something bigger has to happen. And it feels like they're building up to something, but what is that something and when is it going to happen? I thought 2020 was the big thing that was going to happen. And now we've got this, marathon of events that back with the smoke gets in your eyes with New York. I did a decode on that on my second channel. And in that news report, they said that they mentioned marathon. So it was like, well, this is going to be a marathon of events. And it has been a marathon of events since then. So it feels like it's building up to something, especially with this Maui situation. Maui really feels like this is building up to something. Like, they're up to something. The way that this story is being put out there, the deceptions that are being put out there, the narrative, it's so suspicious. It's so weird. Why are they doing this? Why are they getting people all hyped up over it? And there's so many planted deceivers over this Maui situation. It's really kind of freaky. I mean, I thought Tiffany Gomez was weird. I mean, it is weird, but Maui is really weird. So, and the fact that the two are connected is also really weird. I don't even know what to make of it yet. Like, I'm still going through all of the information and trying to figure out, like, what is their end game? What are they at? What are they doing this for? Free Guy and how some people will be triggered to awaken, most will remain normies. Yeah, like with Free Guy, there was one line of dialogue in that movie that I didn't quite understand, because Guy said to his NPC counterparts, he's like, well, what's in me is in you too. But that wasn't true, because Guy was the only one who became alive. He was the only one who truly woke up. And he got his NPC counterparts to join him, but they were not alive like he was. So, because they still had to follow him. He was the one who was inspiring. He was the one who led them to break away from the old programming. And he was the one who leapt off the bridge to the island in the middle, Mount Meru. He was the one who made the leap. And the others followed. They came with him. But they weren't awake. I mean, you could say they were awake to the deception. So perhaps a lot of people, all they have to do is be awake to the deception. They don't need to go the rest of the distance, because they're not meant to leave. They're just meant to follow into the new mindset. That's possible too. Eternal being. The Mormons and Scientologists are getting a lot of negative attention lately with Ruby Franke and Danny Masterson. I feel there's something in the awakening going on with that as well. Thanks for bringing that up, Eternal Being, because I started looking at the Danny Masterson story, and there's something weird about it. Well, this is why I wanted to talk about, the aliens, because it's connected to all the other weird stuff that's going on, which is Maui and Tiffany Gomez and, Danny Masterson. So, around the time that Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's lawsuit came out, around that time, maybe a little earlier, all these YouTube lawyers started to rise up in attention to help you understand and pay attention to all those celebrity lawsuits that are happening. So there's been, the Brian Koberger case was publicly displayed. Danny Masterson has been in the news for quite some time about his issues. From what I understand, because I have not been paying close attention to the Danny Masterson thing, from what I gather, he has been convicted for, apparently I can't say it, with 2 women that happened 20 years ago with no evidence, only their testimony that was also of something that happened 20 years ago under the influence of drugs. So that's kind of shady testimony, but also, shouldn't there be a statute of limitations on when this sort of thing can happen? For somebody to come back and say, hey, 20 years ago, I don't like what you did. I'm going to take you to court and put you in jail over something that I now think was really bad. Now, the story as well is that they tried to do something about it back then, but were harassed by Scientology, were harassed by him. And so that's the story. Now, what I find weird is that all of this is in the media. So, you can totally have a trial and a lawsuit against a celebrity without bringing it all up in the media. But everything is in the media. So that's weird. And then there's this Ashton Kutcher, Mila Kunis apology over letters that they wrote to the judge asking for them to have leniency on what's his name? Danny Masterson. Because they were on the show together for, 7, 8 years. I don't know how long it went, but they were on the show for quite some time. And, there's statements of them in public making inappropriate comments and gestures and doing inappropriate things, but it's not like everybody in the world has never done anything inappropriate or said anything inappropriate, but it's not like it's something that you can be put in jail for. Yes, it's not good, and it doesn't look good on his character. So, anyway, also, having worked on film sets, not that this justifies anything at all, but the atmosphere on film sets is really, really, what's the word? What is the word? Sexualized, I guess. The inappropriate comments, not just from men, but from women as well. I had inappropriate comments said about me to my face from females who shouldn't have said anything, made me feel uncomfortable because it was a wardrobe person and they were, helping me dress in some costume. And I was like, okay, this is inappropriate. And there's also, inappropriate touching on set. There's inappropriate, they put you in inappropriate situations without any consideration for how you might feel. So there was one time where I was hired for a job, it's a background job, and I was told that I was to play the husband, the wife of this guy, his main actor, and he was just going to leave the house and give me a peck on the cheek and leave and go to work. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So he didn't peck me on the cheek, though. He kissed me properly on the mouth every time, which is not appropriate. First of all, you're supposed to ask. Second, I'm supposed to get paid more. So I lodged a complaint. Nothing happened about it. And when I say complaint, I asked for more money because I was supposed to get a peck on the cheek. And, but anyway, nothing happened. So things like this happen all the time. So some of the comments that have been said, I can understand it, doesn't make it right, but I can understand it having worked on sets and having seen how people talk to one another, how people treat one another. And yeah, there's also a lot of really good looking people on set. So, and there's a lot of narcissists too. So it just fosters a kind of weird environment. And there's been people who have, taken things the wrong way. There's people I've worked with who have been totally respectful, and I've never found anything that they've said offensive. They've said things that were quite flattering and kind. And the same person, somebody else, has had such horrible experience with that person that they wanted to file a lawsuit against them for sexual harassment. And I don't even understand how that's possible. But if you have a mindset of being, that this sort of thing happens to you a lot, because it's easy to form that kind of mindset if something like that happened to you. And so then you believe that when this happens, this is what this means, then I can understand that turning into something hostile or being taken the wrong way. So, that happens too. So yeah, there's a lot of focus on the Scientology stuff. So Yeah, I feel like there's something going on with that too. And then the whole taking the letter that the whole situation with Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis and the letters that they sent. I can understand from their perspective if, first of all, you grew up in that environment, so it's kind of normal. And if you have a certain mindset yourself, you don't think anything unusual about any weird behavior. So they were friends with him for quite some time and didn't see anything awful. If I was friends with somebody and I only saw the good side of them because everybody experiences people in a different way, I would probably want to write a letter to defend them as well. But if they've already been convicted, that's kind of a bit of a deterrent, isn't it? Which apparently that's what the situation is. Apparently, they wrote the letter after he was convicted, or they were considering his conviction, something like that, because they asked him to go lenient on him. I don't know all the details, but I do think that it's odd that it went public. It's odd that they're making such a big deal out of it. It's odd that now those two, their reputations being questioned and dragged through the mud. So all of these, anybody who's now associated with this guy is getting dragged in the mud. So there's just been a lot of people in the public eye who are being exposed as being shady, should we say, in the least, which is weird. It's kind of weird. Now, I can't say whether it's true or not. I don't know. Anyone have any thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on where you think this is going in terms of Mormons, Scientologists, that sort of thing? A message for sexual transmutation. Can you elaborate on that, Adam? Because, what I'm hearing is kind of similar in a way to, in the sense, I don't want to say it's similar to Johnny Depp because it isn't, because he didn't do anything. Here, I don't know if he did anything or not. I don't know. But what I'm getting at is it's similar in the sense that there's no evidence. It's all hearsay. It's all he said, she said. Doesn't mean that it didn't happen, but there's some divisiveness and some division over whether he did or didn't, and a lot of people are just saying that he did because the trial went that way. But again, it's all a show. Who's Ruby Frank? I don't know who that is. With the likes of Weinstein, Russell Brand, it's a message for sexual purity as opposed to those who get punished for following primal urges. Yeah, I don't think they're even real trials either. Especially since the the Danny Masterson one was all cartoons. They drew it all, and yet all of the information was made public. The people who were testifying, they were made public. So why, if it's all public, why do they need to draw it? The message to take away is to transmute those urges and conquer the lust. Yeah, that could be. Because if you look at like the whole Russell Brand situation, where he's now concerned because he's getting similar charges, or quite, I don't know what's going on there. Vaguely, I heard his video, watched his video, and he says people are accusing him of stuff, even though he said it was all consensual back in the day, and he's admitted that he was, promiscuous when he was younger, and but it is very suspicious, like, that all of this is coming up now. I mean, in light of the Me Too, and like all of these trials that have been coming out, I do think that it is part of the purging. A shadow aspect of the subconscious manifested in a real life circumstance. I see news stories as either messages or shadow projections of the greater subconscious. Yeah, I agree with you. That yeah, I mean, yeah, I can see it that way for sure. That it's kind of a warning to say that you have to get that part of you under control and transmute it into purification, purity of thought. And it's in so all of these old, like this old way of thinking, and all the way that people used to talk, and the examples that I told you about, what happened on set from my experience, doesn't make it right, obviously, but it's all coming up now, and everybody's pointing the finger at it and saying, well, I would never do that, which, maybe they didn't, but a lot of people did, especially back then when talk like that was acceptable and was okay. And now you're looking back on it and demonizing it and saying that that's bad, which is fine to say, I've grown and I know better now. But a lot of people are saying, well, they should have known better then. Well, not if you're, first of all, young and stupid and surrounded by other people who talk like that, and it's acceptable to talk like that at that time, depending on what circles you run in. You might say stuff but not really mean it. Think it's funny, not really mean it. Doesn't mean you're acting on it. Saying stuff doesn't mean you're acting on it, but acting on it is different. But yeah, going back and looking at things that happened in the past and saying that was wrong, I can't do that anymore, I have to change this. It's a clearing and a purification of old thoughts and old ways of being. Ruby was a family YouTube channel oh, right. Yeah. Her kid broke out of a house emaciated and had duct tape on his limbs. It's a big, crazy story. I can't get all the details across. I vaguely saw a couple of videos about it. I didn't want to watch it. It just looks so dark. Yeah. Okay, I already read that. Cancel culture curtailing seems like shadow shaming, the opposite of growth integration. Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get at, was, pointing the finger at things that happened in the past and shaming people for it. You should have known better, when, it's like looking back in the 50s and saying you should have known better from the perspective of the 2000s, and saying you can't do that. You can't look back and say you should have known better then, because now everything has changed and our perception has changed, and shaming the people in the 50s for behaving a certain way. It's kind of like, expecting reparation from the government for things they did during wartime, because now war's over, you should have known better and you shouldn't have done that. Well, yeah, okay, if you're generally acting out of kindness and goodness, and you're not, in that mindset, it's easy to think that way. But when you're in the mindset of war and that person's the enemy, then you're going to behave in a different way. So I know it's not right and it's not good, but you can't look at something that happened 20, 40, 50, 80 years ago and say you should have known better then, just because you know better now. It doesn't make any sense. And a lot of people do that. And it's kind of like looking back on old things that happened, and the way that you think and act and behave now, especially as things have changed due to, accessible technologies and, lifestyle changes and that sort of thing. And looking back, in the 80s and saying, well, you should behave that way, because now you have social media, but you didn't have social media in the 80s. So people behave completely differently. And we tend to forget that. We're looking at things through our present mind, as opposed to putting yourself in the shoes of people in the 80s and saying, well, how would I behave back then if I didn't have social media, or if I didn't have this knowledge, or if I didn't have this awareness? It's very easy to look back and say, well, you should know better. And it's especially like a lot of these instances that happened, they were in their early 20s or late teens. You're still a dumb kid. And especially if you're in Hollywood, you're a super dumb kid, because Hollywood, you're surrounded by yes men, you're surrounded by enablers, you're surrounded by alcohol, sex, drugs, hot people. You get given whatever you want just by asking for it. So like, it's a completely different environment than you sitting in your living room, going to high school, and watching it on television and judging from your sofa and saying that they should know better. And I defy you to go and live that life and not come out tainted, because you can't go and be surrounded by a party life with all of this, nonsense that's going on, and not come out of it with some kind of experience that you think, I probably shouldn't have done that. Even in your own life, I defy you to find somebody who's 100% pure. And if you are, there's still going to be something that you're probably ashamed of. You're probably going to find something that you're like, well, I probably shouldn't have done that. So pointing fingers at other people and saying they should have known better at 19 or 20 is highly judgmental. And I bet you there's stuff in your life when you were 19 or 20 that you did, and you think now I should have known better, but you didn't at the time. So it doesn't help anybody to cast judgment like that. You don't know what they're like. You don't know what they're thinking. You don't know their life experience. You don't know the situation that they're in, and you can't judge from the outside. So I find it very lacking in compassion to sit there and say that somebody should have behaved a certain way, or known better as a teenager to behave a certain way, especially when they're in a situation like Hollywood, which is like basically teenagers running around at a house party for the rest of their lives with no parents around. And, they got daddy's credit card and can do whatever they want. So, think back into what you were like in high school and how stupid you were in high school and how stupid you were even in college. It's like, I don't know. It seems ridiculous to me. Yes, it's such a prison to humanity, though. Here in California, they want to give reparations to blacks in a state that never had slavery. Yeah, like they give reparation to all sorts of crazy stuff that's like, this never happened. I mean, the native stuff that allegedly happened here, they give reparation to to that, and apparently they even proved that it never happened, and yet they're still giving reparation to something that never happened. Tammy, late again, but we'll rewatch. Well, you're here now. Welcome. Adam, it stems from virtue signaling. Oh, totally. Which is ironically the result of an entire lack of genuine virtue. Yeah, totally. I mean, you know, like it's so easy to point your finger at somebody else and say, well, they're not doing what I would do and they're not doing the right thing. Okay, maybe in that instance, in that situation, on that issue, they're not doing what you're doing. But there's a lot of shit you're doing that they're not doing, and they can point the finger at you and say, hey, I'm not doing that. What do they say in the Bible? He who is without sin cast the first stone. We all do it for sure. Yeah, of course we do. But this is what I'm seeing in the comments of all these people casting judgment and hurling stones and saying, no, they should have known better. And there was, okay, so another part of the story is that Ashton Kutcher, when he first met Demi Moore, he said that he didn't believe that alcoholism was a thing. And so as a result, I mean, this was the retelling of the story from somebody else's perspective, not straight from Demi Moore's mouth. So I don't know the situation from her perspective, or Ashton Kutcher's for that matter. So this is a 10th party retelling. So this person said that as a result of him saying that, she wanted to impress him. So she decided that after 20 years sobriety, she was going to have a drink. So she ended her sobriety because of Ashton Kutcher. You cannot put the blame on him for saying something stupid and ignorant at 20. He's 20 years old and she is 42, and she's deciding to end her sobriety because her boyfriend doesn't think that alcoholism is a thing. You would think after 20 years you would know better, and you would take responsibility and say, well, actually, Ashton, it is a thing, and I have been sober for 20 years, and I'm not going to be drinking just because you think it's not a thing. So I would really appreciate it if you didn't drink around me, because I can't and I don't want to be tempted. It's really a hard issue for me, and I don't want to go there. But instead, she was a people pleaser, or whatever the situation is from this retelling, and she took a drink, ended her sobriety, and then later on when she had an issue, she relied on alcohol to get through it. So now apparently it's his fault. It's not his fault. He said a stupid thing. She took it literally. She decided to use it as an excuse to go back into being an alcoholic or whatever, and jumped off the train. That's not his fault. It's her fault. It's her fault for taking it as an excuse to stop being sober. So she should know herself better at 42. But again, pointing fingers and saying she should know better. She obviously didn't know better, and then now she does. So she had to go through that experience to realize, oops, I made a mistake. Shouldn't have done that. You weren't meant to know until you know. You weren't meant to know until now. Or exactly, you have to go through the experience in order to know. So she went through that experience. She fell off the wagon. She realized, oops, that wasn't a smart thing to do. Shouldn't have listened, and booted him to the curb. And then she went back into being sober. Obviously, there was a lesson she needed to learn. So like there's no mistakes or anything. But to put the blame on him for it is not right. Insanity has taken over the world. Oh, for sure. If only I knew then what I know now, for sure. Yeah, so true. Just growing up in California in the late 80s, early 90s, always a party going on. I was a super naughty teenager. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with going that path because, again, it's like the good and the bad. It gives you character. It allows you to explore more of who you are, stretch your limits, have an understanding and appreciation for what it's like to live on that side or live on this side. And I find that a lot of my experiences that a lot of people might label as, oh, that's not right, you shouldn't go there, has actually made me a stronger person, made me a better person. And if I had continued, I was on like this whole virtuous goody two shoes path when I was a kid. I didn't want to do that anymore because I was a goody two shoes, people hated me. So go figure. Like this world is so messed up. I was a goody two shoes. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't break the rules. I was always at school doing the right thing. I did what the teachers told me to do. I studied. I got good grades. You know, I was a good girl. And where did it get me? People didn't like me. People didn't like me because I was a goody two shoes. And they would say, well, you know, you can trust me because I would never do anything wrong. But I was like, well, and people seem to like me from a distance, but they didn't want to be my friend. So it was kind of weird. Like I had friends, but there were a lot of people who were sort of on the outskirts who were like, yeah, I like you, but you're too good. You're too much of a goody two shoes. I'm worried that in comparison, you're going to find fault with me, or I'm not going to measure up, or, you know, that sort of thing. So that sort of thing kept a gap, which is weird, but, you know, that's how it is. And so they would kind of be projecting this resentment onto me for being a goody two shoes. So I got to the point where I was like, I don't want to be a goody two shoes anymore. So I did stuff that I probably, you know, wouldn't have done otherwise, which I needed to do. I went to parties and stuff, and needed to challenge that perception of myself and that perception that other people had of me. So I didn't do anything bad, you know, just normal teenager stuff, but it was out of character kind of for being a goody two shoes. And it made me a more well-rounded person, made me more confident. So Adam, you're right. People were just jealous of you, TrueLove, because you had your shit together at a young age. Well, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I did, but, you know, it didn't really benefit me that much in a social situation. I mean, I had friends and stuff, but yeah, like I say, there was a big gap between me and other people. Perhaps they didn't have their shit together, and I thought they did. But there you go. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think like towards the end of high school, I was like, screw this. Let's do something else. But I mean, kids are weird, right? Kids are afraid of all sorts of things. They're full of insecurities. They're all over the place trying to figure themselves out. They project all of their bullshit onto other people. And you know, and another thing was like, I knew a lot of people were, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just kid stuff, really. It's just kid stuff. But yeah, I don't think nobody's perfect. Nobody's led a completely wholesome life. And I think that you benefit from getting a little messy, exploring things and trying new things and stretching your boundaries and even getting into a little bit of trouble. And because then you're able to handle yourself. You have that experience. So it's like you build your confidence. It's all part of life, right? So like the more you stretch yourself, the more you realize how expansive you are and how, like, what you're capable of. Like if you look at your life, you led like a totally perfect, simple, non-challenging, puritanical life, you would probably, live by the rules all the time, do all the right things, and usually if you're living like a very puritanical life, you don't have to be, but usually it comes with judgment of the people who don't. But you don't have to. You could be somebody who's like, well, that's okay for you, but it's just not something I want to do. And a lot, you might be like a homebody. You don't go out to bars and stuff, which is fine. You don't need to. You might develop some skills in like arts or homemaking or woodworking or technology, or invest your time in creating things. You might spend more time with a solid group of friends. There's all sorts of things that you could focus on. But yeah, you'd probably be a rule follower. If you lived a puritanical life, you'd be jabbed. You probably would, yeah. Imagine if all the crazy thoughts everyone has were on show, there'd be no cancel culture. Oh boy. I mean, I think that's partly why we're here, because all our crazy thoughts are not on display. But I think that's also partly what's going on right now, is all the sludge is coming to the surface. So we're having these trials and these lawsuits, and it's coming out through the celebrities because they're on television and we're all aware of it. So while that's happening on the world stage, it's probably happening in your personal life too, but it isn't happening in a public forum. It's just you're seeing it within yourself. So the stuff that's being projected, like this story that we're talking about right now, it's bringing out all of this discussion that we're having right now. And so in talking about it, it brings it all to light and brings it all to the surface. And so just because the celebrities are the ones who are showing by example, we still have to process it internally. So it's kind of a mutual relationship here. Tammy, I had my share of trouble, looked at jail a few times. Ooh, yikes. I was quite the hellraiser. Not bad, though. Never hurt anyone. I was always standing up for the ones being bullied. Sorry, I didn't mean to, when I said yikes, I meant I feel bad for you for going through that. Not that it's bad. I don't even, personally, I don't like the whole jail system. I think it's messed up, but I think there's a better way of going about it. So that's what I mean. Yeah, I was always standing up for the ones being bullied. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a superhero situation going on. It's you're trying to stand up for other people, but usually that comes from wanting to stand up for yourself. And it's interesting. It's like when you see other people who are bullying people in school, it's usually because they're getting bullied at home. And so when you're standing up for people who are getting bullied, usually you're standing up for yourself through them. And I kind of did the same thing. If I saw somebody getting bullied, I would stand up for them as well. But I realized that the reason, it's easier for me to stand up for somebody else than it is to stand up for myself. Even though I did stand up for myself, but there were other things that, some things I found it easier to stand up for myself than others. And because I was very, one to help and liked to help other people, I would put myself in a bad position where I'd get taken advantage of. And in those situations, I found it hard to reconcile. So I had a hard time standing up for myself in that situation. But, if somebody was mean to me, I was always like, stop that shit now. So in those situations, it was obvious and I knew how to defend myself. But when it was like devious and underhanded, I was taken like blindsided and didn't understand what was going on, and was always giving them the benefit of the doubt. And that's when I would get taken advantage of. And I was like, well, I don't understand what's going on here. So yeah, like in those situations, it was harder. But yeah, so it's easy to stand up for somebody else because there's nothing to lose. You don't have any ties to the person you're standing up for. You don't have any ties for the person you're defending against. So there's nothing for you to lose. Whereas in your own situation, you're trying to stand up for yourself. You have something to lose, because if, say, it's a love relationship, like whether it's a family member or a friend or boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever, there's this risk of losing them if you stand up for yourself because they're doing something you don't like. But you should be able to say, hey, that's not right, I don't like that. But Celebi, well, good for you, Tammy. I'll knock on wood for you too. You asked for it, drinking and driving, weed, etc. I'm so glad you see it that way. It's a very healthy way to see it. And that will definitely keep you out of going back for sure. That's why they call it stars. That's why they're called stars. Where's that come from? That's why they're called stars? Adam, I'm confused. Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, when you realize, like, we're not all really that complicated, and everything in the world is kind of very simple and straightforward. The whole as within, so without type of thing. There's intricacies there for sure, but it starts to become very easy to see why people do what they do, and and what's going on with people. And as well, like with all this celebrity stuff and then the lawyers and all these other people that are coming out to explain things along the same lines are a lot of therapists coming out to explain things. So they have the reality television and celebrities and stuff. You got therapists online explaining why people behave the way they do to give you a better understanding of where they're coming from and better understanding of your mind and how it works. Unfortunately, they don't understand that all is mind. They don't understand how the universe works, and they don't understand I don't want to say they don't understand how the mind works, but in relation to the universe, they don't. So they're missing that piece of the puzzle. So it's only partly true. If they understood how, like, the relation between the mind and the universe, then they would have a better picture. You mentioned celebrities go through what we do within, but on a public platform. That's why we call celebrities stars, like the stars tell the story of us. Yes, very well said, Adam. I just wondered where it was coming from. But yes, and that's very well said. Thank you. I'm going to repeat that because it's so well said. You mentioned celebrities go through what we do within, but on a public platform. And that's why we call celebrities stars, like the stars tell the story of us. Yes. So the stars, the celebrities, are playing out the tarot play on the world stage to reflect back to you what is happening within, so that you can better understand yourself and understand who you are and where we're at, which is what I show through my decodes. All of my videos are revealing this hidden dialogue, this hidden story that is unfolding before your eyes, and your role in it. So you can better understand what's going on here and who you are and what your purpose is. Arthur. Existing as a negative human, but remembering I'm a positive being. That's an interesting perspective. Why can't you be a positive human and a positive being? Or a combination of the two? Tammy, that's why in 2020, after my awakening, everything changed. I quit drinking. Good for you, Tammy. That's quite a change. You've changed your life around. That's awesome. React Calicut. Hey, people. Hello. Brave for you, Tammy. Brava for you. Yeah, I applaud you too, Tammy. That's awesome. Negative and positive are opposing pillars, but the middle path integrates them both. Exactly. Put the two together. React, you are late. You are indeed almost 2 hours late. But you're here. Hello. Yes, you're here. That's what matters. Yeah, like, so last week we talked about the whole evil doesn't exist thing. And, that's upsetting for some people. And today I came across, well, my friend sent me a meme. And it was pretty funny. It was half Jesus, half Satan. And the line on the top was transmuting or transcending duality is realizing that Jesus and Satan are the same entity and they are both you. So, yeah, that's very hard for a lot of people to accept. To accept that you are these entities and that the positive and negative exists at the same time within you is very hard to believe. And, as we're talking about all of these people casting judgment on other people for their failings and their, less than puritanical behavior is kind of astounding, because there's no way that their behavior is above judgment. And there are, for sure, there's people who do bad things, and pointed out, we kind of have to at some point to say, hey, you might want to get back in your lane, kind of thing. But not understand that, you can be doing a lot of good things. You can be doing a lot of good things and still be a bad person, or still have bad behaviors, or, bad behaviors doesn't necessarily make you a bad person. And we talked about this last time too, where like if you point at someone, say for example, these people pointing at Ashton Kutcher for that one thing he said when he was 20, that he doesn't believe that alcoholism is a thing. And somebody said, well, that's all you need to know about his character. I'm like, really? That one thing that he said, and you're going to paint him with that brush to say that that is his entire character? I don't know him personally. I don't know anything about him. But you cannot take one statement that somebody has said and then say that that is the entirety of their character. What about all the other stuff that he's done? What about all of the other things that he's said? I mean, how limiting can you get in defining what one person represents? Would you like it if somebody said to you that one thing you said when you were 20 sums up your entire character, good or bad? Because now you're limited to behaving within these walls. And nothing you do outside of those walls matters, because this is who you are. I don't think you'd appreciate it very much. So why are you, like these people, looking at other people and saying that this sums up who he is within that one sentence? This is preposterous. You can't do that to anybody. It doesn't even make sense. So, I could look at him in that one sentence and say that that one sentence defines who he is. And that's not fair to that person either. So yeah, like we were saying last time, when you define someone as either good or evil based off of something that they have done, the thing that they did might have been not so good, but that doesn't define who they are. That doesn't make them evil for doing something bad. You're the one who's making them evil by defining them as evil, and you've confined their existence into a box that says evil on it, and you put them in that box, and now they can't get out of it because that's what you've defined them as. So no matter what they do outside of that box, this is how you see them. To somebody else, they can see them in a whole completely different way, but you've defined them as evil, therefore that's all you see. So she has a very sharp mind, been watching her for years. I'm assuming that that's about me, but thank you. React, I find it hard to be around people that are sleeping through the matrix. It's very hard. Yeah, it is very hard. And, you are sharp. Thank you. Like, yeah, it is very hard to be around people who are asleep. It's very hard for you as having this perception to be around somebody who doesn't have the same perception, because you're both looking at the same thing and not seeing it the same way. But also, it's kind of like smart people having a hard time being around stupid people. And, like, you can't really have a conversation about things you want to talk about because they won't understand you. And it goes both ways. Like, somebody, like, you perceive, if you're highly intelligent, your interests will lie elsewhere than somebody who's not highly intelligent. Their interests will lie in things that are in their territory of comprehension, and your things are within your territory of comprehension. So the two just don't mesh. So you can probably talk to each other for a little while, but at some point there's going to be a wall and there's going to be a gap, and you're going to say, okay, well, I'm going to talk about, metaphysics or whatever. And this person's like, well, I want to talk about the Brady Bunch. And you're just like, well, I don't really like the Brady Bunch. So you part ways. It's the same sort of thing with the truth. Yeah, I mean, and there's levels within the truth too. Like, I can talk to a sleeper for a while. And it gets to a point where it's like, okay, I don't like the Brady Bunch. I got to move on. And then I can talk to somebody who's in conspiracy mind, but then they start going off on all the fear stuff. And then I'm like, okay, I don't want to talk about, the Brady Bunch going to war, but thank you very much. And then, it's great that they're awake to a certain level, but there's still going to be a wall there. When you come into contact with somebody who's on your level, it's like, there's no walls, there's no boundaries. It's like heaven. It's like, wow, I finally connected with somebody who sees the world the way I see it. And it's like, how many of us are there up here? There's not many. The path is narrow for a reason. And there's more. There's more every day. So that's beneficial. And, we have our little weekly gathering here and we connect and talk, which is refreshing and helpful. But it is very difficult to connect with anybody who doesn't see eye to eye, regardless of whether it's about truth or not. So yeah, like, but the thing that truth does is that it eliminates a lot more people out of your sphere of influence, shall we say. There's a lot fewer people for you to talk to. Nobody knows us here. Hello. I hope you're feeling better. It's so good to see you. I missed you. I wouldn't be watching if I didn't think so. Thanks, Tammy. She was the first female I found that could see through the deception. Are you serious? Wow. I know there's not many females who do what I do. There are a few who are caught in the trap, like the fear trap, which is, at least they're talking and they're there, and that's great, but they don't seem to progress past the fear trap. And then there's a few who talk a lot of like the new agey, in the new age territory, there's a lot of females in that area. Conspiracy mindset, mostly men in the conspiracy mindset. Very few women in that area. And then there's like the middle pillar path, and there's nobody. there's like very few. I think 2 people I've come across, and I'm the only woman. So doesn't mean that there aren't more. I just haven't come across them. Okay, so I guess this person needs to be booted. Okay. Whoever you are, BCCRSS, you gotta go. we don't talk about legal name fraud here because it's nonsense. And you spamming my chat like this is not appreciated. There are levels, stages to go through. People here are masking back up. Oh yeah. Yeah, there are levels and stages, and a lot of people don't talk about that either. You know, going through the levels of awakening, the stages or doors of perception, the levels of perception, and how things change as you come to realize more things. Yes, you. I'll be 54 October 29th. You have given me a whole new perspective of looking at things. Age never matters in knowledge. No, it doesn't. You're not much older than me. Yeah. I no longer date. Yeah, later. We have no time for trolls. I'm in North Carolina. It looks like 2020 right now. Oh, seriously? It's that bad in North Carolina? I met 2 people from North Carolina once when I went on a trip to on the west coast of America, California, Las Vegas, what's it called? Arizona, and like the canyon and everything. Oh, you're in North Carolina too. Yeah, I met a couple of people from North Carolina, really nice guys. That was a long time ago, though. It was like 2002 or 3, something like that. Yeah, so that's cool. Sorry, this guy's spamming my channel. I need to get rid of this guy. And now I can't even find... Well, that's interesting. Hanging Rock State Park, Stokes Country. That's cool. Yeah, I'm in the small town of Troy, Montgomery. I don't know where that is. Sounds nice, though. I mean, North Carolina looks nice in pictures. And the 2 people I met from there were really nice people. But I've never been there. I'm from Bristol, UK. Del the Bristol drummer. Always love listening to your insights, Yolanda. Thanks, Del. Probably setting up a new account. Yeah, probably. I love this weekly gathering. I look forward to it all week. Thanks for doing this, TrueLove. Well, I'm glad you appreciate it. If you appreciate these weekly chats, I'd appreciate a contribution. It'd be nice to keep this channel going and keep these lives going. And if you become a member, that'd be even better. Links are in the description box. And also, you can give this video a like. That'd be helpful too. I'm glad you appreciate these chats. Yeah, there's not, a lot of truthers. I don't know. Okay, I say this. I say this from a kind of weird perspective because I filtered out a lot of the truthers that I used to listen to, and I don't really listen to truthers anymore. So I don't know. But back in the early days of my journey, like 2017, 2018, used to be lives all the time. So I don't know, maybe it's still there, but it seems like things have changed, which is fine. Things have to change, but yeah, like I don't know of any truther channels that go live other than, well, I don't really consider them I don't even consider myself a truther channel anymore. I'm kind of out. I'm not in that community because I don't know. It's not. It's not really even a community anymore. I don't know. It's so difficult. It's so difficult to be, especially in truth community, because everybody's got such strong opinions and strong perspectives, and at some point you clash and you don't gel, and so getting along with other channels or whatever is very hard, which is why I distanced myself, because I needed to figure it out for myself. I didn't want to be influenced, and I didn't want to be tied into a community, and I didn't want to be associated with other people, and I needed to do my own thing. And it led me to figure out a lot more faster. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean I don't resent them or anything. I just don't pay attention. I'm not really part of that anymore. You're your own genre, the TrueLove community. Yeah, it's I talk about things that other people don't talk about, and I'm willing to go out there and say weird things that other people aren't saying. Doesn't mean they aren't experiencing it. They're just not saying it. I know no one around me who's awake, even somewhat, so this keeps me sane. Yeah, that's going to be tough. Been here my whole life, love it, and just an old country hick. So, yeah, I mean, everyone's got different kinds of lifestyles and stuff. So, like for me, when I was in my early stages, and like the whole conspiracy stuff was coming up, it's like 2017, 18, 19. So those 3 years, I was working in background. And because in background, there's a lot of artists, so they're kind of tapped into the right hemisphere of the brain. They're more creative, intuitive, but they're also open-minded to different things. And a lot of people were starting to see things and starting to be open to things. So I had a lot of people to talk to. I was very fortunate in that way. But also they have a lot of free time because we're sitting in background, so we have a lot of free time. So I was very fortunate to have a lot of people to talk to. Also, I have this channel that allows me to talk to you, keeps me sane to be able to talk about it to you, to be able to talk, because I can talk freely for the most part. There's things that I would love to say, that love to share, but I can't because it's personal, or I can't because it's a little way too far off in the distance to, and there's been things that I have said that I waited on because I either wanted to be certain of it, or I didn't think people were ready to hear it. And then thankfully, when I did share it, people were ready to hear it. So, that's been beneficial. But I've been very lucky to have quite a few people in my life that I've been able to talk to on various levels. But here I can talk, for the most part, quite freely about what I know. There's still things, the platform censors and that sort of thing. And then there's the haters and people who don't want to hear what you have to say. And some of those people do, stupid things about it. But for other people, depending on their jobs, where they're living, their lifestyles, that sort of thing, they have no one to talk to. So yeah, it's difficult for a lot of people. Zombie land. At least we're in the same state. My brother lives in Winston-Salem. Yeah, I spent a huge part of my life in Wisdom. Wow, you guys are all in the same areas. That's great. North Carolina, though, is a pretty fair-sized state, so I can't imagine you guys could easily meet up or anything. It's not impossible. It's not like California to New York, but I mean, here was the other thing. Like in the early days, I don't know if there's anybody listening to who's in their early stages of awakening, because my channel's a little bit more advanced than early stages, but that's okay if you are. It's great if you are. But when I was in my early stages of awakening, it was terrifying, first of all. It was lonely, and you kind of want people to connect with. I think that was the biggest thing, is like, is there anybody out there who sees what I see? Aside from the various channels that you're watching. Will anybody talk to me about it? Is kind of the overwhelming feeling that you have at the very beginning, which is a vulnerability and makes you susceptible to people who prey on that, which is not fair, but there are people who do. And I got sucked into some of that. There were some people who are part of the game, shall we say, who do that. So, I mean, it's fine. It was a lesson I needed to learn. It was something I needed to see. And I'm just saying, like, if you are in the early stages, be careful of who you reach out to. Just wait your time, learn more truth, get through the fear stage, and don't be very eager to meet up with other people. Find, if you want someone to talk to, there's communities that you can join. There's just like, you can leave comments in the chat, leave comments on videos, that sort of thing. I have a Discord group if you want to join that. But like, meeting up and being keen to meet up is something that we have, like this innate desire. We want to meet up with other people who see what we see. But my advice would be don't. Just wait. Just wait until you know better. Wait until you've gone through a lot of the burn stage, like, so you can have better judgment over who you should meet and shouldn't meet. It's like, for me, like, a lot of times I was kind of naive or stupid about it, and I was willing to meet anybody. Not totally anybody, but I was open to meeting people because I understood how hard it was to go through this. And so if somebody wanted to meet up, I was keen to meet. I didn't really think about, the dangers, or that there were other people who might not be legitimate. And it wasn't smart, but I'm still here. I'm still okay. I'm still in one piece. So, nothing really bad happened. Yeah, it was just people who turned out to not be genuine. And so, got a few bruises in sort of the friendship area and the trust area. But other than that, I'm still fine. Nothing dangerous happened. So I don't want to give that impression. I just don't. Looking back on it, I would advise not to meet people and not to be in a rush to meet people, and be selective about it. Yeah, I went through a huge part of it. I'm a member for sure. committed, can't afford devoted right now, or I would. That's great. Thanks. Yep. Yeah, I mean, the membership is on my website is something that is beneficial because you get, first of all, you get access to the videos first. And a lot of these videos that I'm putting together are they're more advanced than what I've been doing in the past because obviously like I've learned a lot more. And the stuff that's happening right now is very different from what has been happening in the past. So I'm seeing new things and I'm seeing new patterns, and I'm getting to a different level of perception. All of the stuff I put out is in the revealing of the story. It is designed not by me, it is designed by the system. If you are able to read it and decode it, it is designed by the system to raise your perception, to help you rise in Christ consciousness. And so what I do is help you get there by doing half of that work for you. So I'm showing you how to do it yourself, but also showing you the story. And in doing so, it should help unlock those levels of perception. But there's still stuff you have to do yourself. Like me just telling you is part of it, because I can show you how to do it yourself and I can show you what the story is, but you still have to take it in internally. So in doing that, it accelerates your awakening process. It unlocks doors of perception. Also, being on the middle pillar as opposed to one of the other two pillars and coming back in the reincarnation loop cycle, if that's what you want, helps you bypass all of the nonsense and keep you on track. But also, the content I'm making is I'm getting to a point where I'm not sure if I should release it publicly because of the information that I'm finding. And I don't like saying that because I do want the most amount of people to see this information, if I can. But at the same time, I don't even know how to explain it. There's some things that are going to be triggering for people who aren't ready to see it. Not that they're, it's not that they can't see it. It's not that they're not allowed to see it. A lot of times they just won't understand it, and then it'll trigger them. And me saying it a lot of times is going look at the there is no evil thing and how that triggers people, or merging the dualities and that triggers people. This is more than that. So how many people can actually accept this information and process it and do with it what they're supposed to do? There's not many. And so again, goes back to the casting pearls before swine type of thing. Sometimes some of this stuff is not meant to be seen by prying eyes or, the general public. It's just not meant for them. So some of this stuff is not going to be released. It's going to have to stay private. And if for somebody who wants that information, it's there, but it has to be protected. And I know that it sounds like, I don't want it to sound like I'm like putting it away because, of trying to get people to pay. But at the same time, I'm the one who's done the work. I'm the one who's invested my time. And part of that is I need to be able to pay my bills. So there is an element of that involved, yes, but that's not the only reason. So, yeah. Unfortunately, that's the way the world works right now. So, yeah, it's not for everybody. True love is a smart cookie. Thanks. Yes, she's brilliant. Thank you very much. Wow, sir, you went through that. I swear, you never know. Well, Tammy, there's a lot of stuff I've been through that I can't even tell you, but that wasn't the worst. But I just wanted to just say, like, a lot of people aren't, it's just not worth meeting them. Sun Tzu, absolutely, my friend. True love, I used to trust almost everyone. I was so naive. Discernment is part of the spiritual practice too. Absolutely. I used to trust almost everyone as well. And I used to trust people until they gave me reason not to trust them. Now I don't do that anymore. I just now use the phrase prying eyes twice in a text a friend. We understand, got you. It doesn't sound bad. Are you getting a good response to your new membership offering? I'm getting a good response. It's good. It's just far from where I need to be. So, but yeah, it is a good, healthy response. It's just far from where I need to be. And, you know, unfortunately, like the way that it is, if other, like, you can look at it from the perspective of other shill, if there's just like shill channels out there who get supported by all the mainstream people who don't know any better. And then there's, a resistance for people in the truth community to put money behind it, because there's a lot of talk in the truth community about how you shouldn't charge, which I can understand from a certain perspective. I don't really have a problem with people charging. It's when people put money first ahead of the truth, because then the truth gets tainted. And I was very careful to make sure that the money doesn't taint the truth. And so I struggled with it for a very long time and tried to find the best way to take care of my own needs, as well as to deliver the truth to you in the way that I've been doing without it being compromised. And so at first I was relying on contributions without holding anything back, or, the stuff that I was providing was like a bonus material for material that I couldn't put publicly. I was things that were restricted by YouTube, or things that were, things I couldn't share publicly. So I was using that as a bonus material to reward people who were kind enough to support me. Unfortunately, it wasn't sustainable, and we're in this state where we're going from the old mind of this sort of lack consciousness of, well, if you're giving it for free, why should I pay for it, kind of thing, which is understandable. I understand that. And there's a lot of people who are suffering right now who don't have a lot, and I understand that too, but I'm one of them. So I have to do something, and I have to tend to my own needs. And that's part of the Ascension process. It's part of looking after my needs, and also incorporating it in a way that doesn't taint the truth and better serves everybody. So the information that I am seeing at this stage it's very delicate, very sensitive. It's very, in a lot of ways, it can get very personal. And so it isn't intended for a mass audience. It's intended for the right people. So I've also been very careful about putting out this information. In the past, I've been very reluctant to have things go viral. So I deliberately named things obscurely so people would have to find my channel in a very specific way. And I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to limit it anymore. So with the stuff that I've already put out, there's a lot more people out there now talking about it. So with that stuff, it's fine if that gets a bigger audience. This new stuff is very intricate. Yeah, I don't even know how to articulate it without explaining what it is. So, but the people who are, rising in consciousness, who are seeing this stuff, will understand it. It'll just go over the heads of the other people, or they'll get triggered. So yeah, if the shield channels are getting supported and channels like mine are not, then I disappear and nobody has access to it. So, that would be a real shame. And it's not like, I know that this is important information, and I know that this is what I have been trained all my life to do. So that doesn't make sense to me. So my current thought is, that's not possible. That's not happening. This is happening. Whatever it takes, it's happening. So it's it's using a lot of like law of attraction focus and talk, and a bit of adjustments here and there to try and figure out what works. And I'm not good at this. I didn't want to make a business out of it. I don't like selling, but it is what it is. I got to do something. So I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. And I know this is off-putting to a lot of people. And like I said, the truth community, the talk is, you can't charge for this stuff, which is probably by design. They probably planted that so that people like me can't continue to do this, So I had to rejig my perceptions around money, my beliefs around money, and my beliefs around money and truth, and find a way that works. And so far this works. And there's some really great findings coming from the work that I'm doing. And there's going to be a lot more that I want to do. And that's another thing. The more it builds, the more I'll be able to do, and the more I'll be able to provide. And I'll be able to expand on what I can provide you, like services or content or what have you. But right now it's just me, and this is all I can do. So I'm doing my best. Such good advice. I wanted to go to a flat earth meetup. Then I found turmoil in that community and saw that they were still in the fear trap and religion and couldn't go. Yeah. There's nothing, if you're going to meet up with people, a group is more ideal, because you're in a group, you can leave whenever you want and nobody will care. When it's one-on-one, it's a little harder to leave. And the other person kind of, in my case, I'm on a public platform. And so the people I meet or met in the past tended to be, they tended to have this approach where they thought that they knew me better than they did, because they've been watching my videos. So they took it the wrong way and kind of made it into something that it isn't, and had stronger attachment to the situation than was actually there in some cases. And so yeah, like it can be difficult. So if you're going to meet up with somebody, group situation is ideal, because you can leave and you're not attached to anybody. And it's not dangerous or anything. It's just not not good. My phone bit the dust. Back now. Okay. Do any of you suffer from anxiety? Curious if you know RJ Spina. I don't know RJ Spina, no. In terms of I wouldn't say I suffer from anxiety. I have had experiences of anxiety, and there was a time where I had panic attacks, but I haven't had any of those issues for years. So I assume you're asking a lot of people in the chat too if they have. Those going through Kundalini awakenings often have hypersensitive nervous system. Eternal Being, Darius Wright shows the best pictures of the construct. I fell for the flat earth for a short period of time. Who's Darius Wright? I don't know. This is sounding a little bit, because, okay, so there's the flat earth that the flat earth community is putting out, which is bogus. We live in a Taurus field. And there's this like other anything other than the Taurus field is not right. And it got to slow down, lessen stress, watch diet, lifestyle, etc. Wilfie, I do also. I quit taking benzos, but I do something natural. I started taking full spectrum CBD oil and blah, blah, blah. Eat clean, walk outside every day. That sounds positive. Meditation helps too. So, what I noticed, okay, with panic attacks, my panic attacks, they were triggered by trying to help other people and meet their demands while ignoring my own. And so once you focus on your own needs and your own feelings and prioritize that and then communicate that properly, you shouldn't have panic attacks anymore. Because it's this feeling of not being able to do what other people want you to do, and having demands put upon you, and not being able to move, being stuck. It's like this sort of terror of not knowing where to go, at least in my case. And same with depression. I've talked about depression before, and again, I'm not a therapist. I have to say, I'm not a therapist for myself. This is how it worked for me. I was paying attention to my negative thought patterns, and I would notice when they started to spiral in a downward fashion, and I would stop myself and catch myself, and then it wouldn't go any lower, and I could get myself back out of it again, because that's what it is. It's just thoughts out of control. So when you practice mindfulness and you practice meditation and you get a handle on your thoughts, then you don't feel depression anymore, because you are identifying with your thoughts. You're identifying with negative thoughts, and your negative thoughts just start to snowball and latch on to more and more and more. So if they can go in the negative way, they can also go in a positive way. So all you have to do is pay attention to what your thoughts are. And if you're able to get hold on them and distance yourself from them and observe them and say, hang on a sec, why am I thinking this? Is this true? Can I change this? What do I want to feel instead? Take this thought, identify it, and then flip it to what you want to think instead, and move yourself towards thinking that instead, using truthful statements. You can lie to yourself if you want to, but if you use truthful statements, because it's all about perception, you can get yourself from this mindset to this mindset, and is just as truthful as this. So it's just because you're focusing on this perspective that it's starting to snowball. So when you push it over to the other side and you start getting positive and it starts to snowball in the positive direction, that's a lot better, and it will get you out of the depression. I meant to say I fell for the flat earth theory, but I realized it was a toroid field. Okay, yeah. I mean, the problem with like the flat earth territory is they give you all the answers so that you don't have to go and figure it out for yourself, which do not do. It's like, yeah, okay, it's convenient that they give you all the answers, but it doesn't take you off the hook of figuring it out for yourself. So, there's a large portion of people who will just regurgitate what other people tell them. You can't do that. You have to think it through yourself. Does this make sense? Does this fit with everything I know to be true? Well, if it doesn't, then where are the truthful bits and what's missing? So how do I fill in the gaps to find what is truthful? I feel very isolated from people, try to avoid people altogether. So you feel isolated, so you avoid people. Your actions are backing up what you feel, and so you can change that if you like. If you don't, if you like to be isolated, that's totally fine. But if you wanted to change that, you could. You could change your perception to I feel very welcomed by people, and I seek out the company of other like-minded people, and then see what happens. But if you like to be isolated, there's nothing wrong with that. Totally want to be isolated. If you want to be isolated, I enjoy my own company. I also enjoy talking to other like-minded people. So I like to talk. I like to socialize. I like to have conversations with people. I like to hear what they have to say. But they have to be like-minded people. I don't like to waste my time too much talking for very long with people who are not awake. So if they're good people and they're nice people, I don't mind talking to them for a while. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with spending quality time on your own and enjoying your own company if you like to be on your own. But if you don't and you want to talk to people, you can say, I like my own time, but I also like to talk to like-minded people and see what happens. The Taurus field is how I've come to know it. It absolutely is 100% a Taurus field. You feel what you focus on. Reverend Galileo, hello. Yeah, you do. You feel what you focus on, but you also focus on what you feel. So there's a channel I've talked about before. His name is Be Something Wonderful. He does a very good job at showing how all of that works. What you focus on, you feel, and what you feel, you focus on, and how that manifests into your experience. So focus on something different. It's very simple, but because we've been trained to think and act a certain way, the way that it is explained, it is very simple, but it is also hard to wrap your head around sometimes. So I think that because we live in this like fallen consciousness and everything is very physically based, and we're very focused on, well, this is my experience, therefore it is true. So, well, if you change what you think is true, then you will have a different experience. We don't see it that way. We see it as, this happened externally, therefore that this is my experience. It's like we don't understand that it starts here and comes out there, and then you perpetuate it by saying that. So getting out of that mindset and shifting to, okay, create it here first so that you can see it out here, it sometimes is tricky, especially if you've never thought of it that way. If you're just starting to come into that mindset and starting to understand the mind physical connection, it's difficult to pull yourself out of looking externally and saying, but it's there, but it's there. And the more you rise in perception, and the more you see how well, basically fake everything is on the world stage, and then how that plays out in your own life, and the more that's revealed to you, the easier it becomes. So yeah, like there's a lot of that I'm seeing and sort of playing around with. And like the street theater that I've told you about, like I'm sure that I've had street theater in my life before, but I'm only now just seeing it and understanding how it works and what it is. And that is just profound shift to see street theater playing out in your own life. That's just wild. I live in a very small town. Solitude works for me. I can't understand the conversation when people are wearing a mask. It's all muffled. Oh God, yeah, I hate it. I'm tempted sometimes to say something about it, but I don't. To each his own. If you're terrified enough that you have to wear that thing on your face, that's your prerogative. But if you're somebody who's in sales, whether you're customer focused and you have to communicate with somebody, I would like to see your mouth so I can hear what you're saying. Andrea, I'm doing well, and I'm doing what I love. That's awesome. In the kitchen, creating recipes while listening to like-minded people. That's great. Yeah, like I was listening to some YouTube channels on like law of assumption and that sort of thing this morning, and it's really exciting. It's exciting listening to people talk about this stuff. And there's so many people talking about it, which is great, because we're changing our consciousness, we're changing our minds, we're changing how we think, we're changing how we behave, we're changing how we act and how we live. And all of that is so exciting. And when I listen to that sort of stuff, and I listen to how that is manifesting and how that's unfolding, and how many people are involved in catching on to it, it's so exciting to hear. And hearing all of the success stories and all these people, and how they are changing their perception of this world and understanding how things work, it is very exciting. And they're masking back up. Enjoyed listening and being here with everyone. Wish everyone have a wonderful day. Bye, Tammy. Thanks for joining us. I decided not to be a victim anymore, and it works. I am not anyone's victim anymore. That's awesome. Do you want to elaborate on how that's turned things around for you? Here's the thing. So this is one thing that I've been working on, is you said a key word here. I decided. So one of the things that's in common with a lot of these stories is I decided. So it's all about I am. It's about being. So if you want to change, like the famous saying, be the change you want to see in the world, you be who you want to become. So a lot of people talk about, well, when this happens, I'll be this, or I'll go on a diet when this happens, or I'll get a boyfriend when this happens, or whatever. It's all contingent on some external factors that are beyond your control, let's say. Or it's like, okay, I'll here. I don't want to get into that one, so I won't say that. So it's all external factors, and if you want to change something, it's you have to be it. So instead of waiting for the external factors to change, you just decide now that this is how it's going to be. And when I look back on a lot of the things that I've manifested in the past and how it has changed dramatically a lot of things that have happened to me, in every instance, it was because I decided. And the experiences I had. So let's see, for example, when I was working at this office, and I was having a hard time, and I wasn't being treated well, and I didn't like, they talked down to me because they saw me as like really young when I wasn't that young. And even though my age was on my, my ID and my all the experience that I had was on my resume and everything, for some reason, all they did was look at my face and they assumed how old I was. So they talked to me in a certain way. And so I was angry because I was getting all this work put on me. I was overwhelmed. I had too much to do. So I was ready to quit. I was ready to walk away. And so I went to a parking lot and I vented my frustrations, and I was like, okay, I can't leave. I'm only here for maternity cover. What am I going to do about it? How can I use this to my benefit? So I decided that, well, if I'm going to stay, I'm going to use this as a law of attraction experiment. So I decided that I was going to be their best employee, the best employee they ever had. I was going to be loved by everybody, and I was only going to do the things I wanted to do, and all the other things that I didn't want to do, somebody else would do. So every day I went into the office and I would talk myself through the day, and I would say, this is the conversation I'm going to have today. We're going to talk about movies. And at the time I wanted to work at a film studio. So I pretended that I worked at a film studio, and I pretended that this was what was going to happen. And so by the time I got to the office, I had scripted the whole day out. Well, one day I went in there and I was having my coffee in the kitchen, and two coworkers walked into the kitchen and had the conversation with me that I had with myself in the car on the way over. That was pretty mind-blowing. And then I was working on what I wanted to work on. I didn't work on things I never wanted to work on, but those things just magically, somebody else took them on. I never asked anybody to do them. I just decided I wasn't going to do them, and somebody else decided that they wanted to do them. So it wasn't like I didn't force it on anyone. I didn't make them do it. I didn't ask anybody to do it. they just said, you know what? I've got some free time. Can I take that off your plate? Oh, yes, you can. So, and then at the end, I ended up winning an award for the work that I did. And, everybody at the office loved me and thought I was great. And I was like, wow, this turned out to be quite something. So that was like my little Cinderella moment where bibbity bobbity boo, the situation changed. But, it was because I had decided. And there were other moments and other examples that I was stacking up that all came from having decided this is what I'm going to do and this is how it's going to be. I wanted an apartment on the other side of Hyde Park so that I could walk to work every day through the park. And everybody told me it was nuts. I couldn't find one in my budget. There's no way. You don't have a lot of money. And I said, well, I want to live over there, and I'm going to live over there. And I found myself a place, and I walked through the park to work every day because I decided. And that was before I even knew about law of attraction. It was just, that's what I wanted. I was going to get it. So a lot of these experiences all come from being just deciding. React, they will mask up and hide under the bed when the aliens show up. It's all part of the show. Well, if the aliens look anything like the ones they found in Mexico, I can't say I'm going to be afraid of them. Stood up to the narc and decided not to give my power over to doctors, politicians, or anyone else. Got off lots of medication, 4 years off next month. That's fantastic. That's great. That's a huge change. React. There's a mindfulness CBT book by Mark Williams and another fellow that I found useful. It has some super short meditations and journaling exercises. Congrats, my friend. Job well done. Wilfie, thanks so much. Check them out. Laugh. Nobody knows. You just said a line from Once Upon a Time, the Cinderella story just watched earlier. What was the line I said? I'm not surprised, to be honest. And I finished Once Upon a Time to the end of season 6. I haven't watched season 7. I kind of feel like the story's over at the end of season 6. So I don't know if there's any need to watch season 7, but I miss it now. If TrueLove wasn't in another country, I would cook her some dinner. Oh, that's nice. Thanks. Oh, bibbity bobbity boo. Yeah, well, that's the phrase in Cinderella is bibbity bobbity boo. The fairy godmother says that. You didn't know that? Okay. Yeah, the Cinderella fairy godmother says that. It really helped me see the negative thought loops I was inflicting on myself. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's really, it's freeing, but it's also kind of upsetting when you see, like negative thought patterns and things that you say to yourself that you really just take for granted and you don't even think about it because these thoughts are just like they're bouncing off the walls of your head and you don't even know where they came from. You don't know why you're saying them and you take it for granted because they've always been there. And you don't really think, well, why am I saying this stuff? Why am I beating myself up so hard over something so trivial? Why do I say these things to myself? Why can't I be nicer to myself? Why am I so hard on myself? All of this stuff, it's like, well, where's this crap coming from? And it's all junk we've picked up along the way that we haven't purged, because we haven't even noticed that it's there, because it's become so normal. It's kind of like if you were always swimming in soup, you wouldn't know that you're swimming in soup until you're no longer swimming in soup. You're swimming in the ocean and you look back at the soup and you're like, well, ugh, why did I swim in that stuff? This is so much cleaner. But if you didn't know, then how are you going to know? Going back to what Adam said earlier, you don't know until you know what you know now. Adam, I'm obsessed with Severance. Yeah, I saw Severance, a couple years ago, whenever it came out. Shortly after it came out, I saw it, and it's good. It's a bit slow at first. Picks up, but it is a bit slow. So I started watching it again. I watched 2 episodes last night. The opening scene is so full of symbolism. I was thinking of doing a little mini decode on just the opening scene. It'd be a short one, but I find it fascinating, just the opening scene. Well, horrible stepmother said it, stole fairy godmother's wand. Oh. Have you seen Oppenheimer yet? Yes, I've seen it. I saw it when it came out. I'd love to see you decode it. Yeah. Severance is on Apple. Yes, I've seen Oppenheimer, and I'm kind of dreading it. Oppenheimer, I gotta go back through it and make notes for the decode, because I'm going to be decoding the movie, but it's 3 hours long, basically. I am not looking forward to this. It's so huge. And even Barbie took a long time. Barbie, I think, took me 2 days to decode. And granted, Barbie has a lot more detail. Oppenheimer doesn't have as much detail, but there's a lot in Oppenheimer that I think a lot of people missed. That is definitely worth bringing to the surface. And there's, again, like I say, Oppenheimer and Barbie tied to Plain Lady, Plain Guy, and Maui. So all of that is wrapped up in one neat little package. Season 7 is good too. I thought the end was fitting. Okay. It's well worth a watch. Really well made. Lots of symbolism. It is. The Severance is really good. I'm waiting for this 2nd season to come out. Yeah. It's like, I could get a lot more out if I could do shorter videos, but people don't watch the short videos, and people don't tend to watch if I do a series on something, so they'll watch the first video and then they won't watch anything else. But if I do one video on the whole thing, then they'll watch it. So interesting. I've noticed, like, my my nines video has picked up quite a bit. So I guess somebody shared it somewhere, because that's interesting. And I find that the movie The Nines it's a very telling movie, but it's kind of obscure. I vaguely remember when it first came out, and it didn't appeal to me, even though it was Ryan Reynolds. So I guess it's developing some sort of cult following or something. But yeah, like, I could do with a new show. Does anybody have a new show? Because I guess I could finish Once Upon a Time season 7. But I've had a few people recommend some movies, and I've taken a look at some of them. But they're like, if they don't resonate, I'm not going to watch it just because there's some truth in it. Like horror films and such. I don't like horror films, and some are just painful to get through. They're really boring and slow. I did watch some of the. I watched Donnie Darko, and there's a lot in it. I've considered doing a decode of it, but so many people have talked about it so much already. I don't know. Like, I do have things to add to it, but do I need to? I don't know. The one thing with Donnie Darko that sits with me is the ending. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Yeah, it's like the ending, where I don't know if I don't want to spoil it for people, but again, it just kind of ties into Back to the Future. There's a time loop connection. There's he's in bed sleeping, and so the ending to me is very similar to Back to the Future. So that kind of sticks with me because there's insights I have on that. But is it worth me doing a whole thing on it? I don't know. I only watch on TV, one TV show, which I highly recommend, especially if you like comedy. It's called What We Do in the Shadows, based on the movie. I don't watch horror. Is that with the guy? I think it was on an episode of that. I think it's shot in Toronto. The Things We Do in the Shadows, and I think it was Mark. The guy from Star Wars is in that. It's a bunch of vampires or whatever, and it was shot in Toronto, and I was on an episode of that. It was kind of weird background gig, but Mark Hamill, yeah. Oh, okay. So yeah, I was in that episode with Mark Hamill. So I don't think you'll see me, but it's possible. So the scene I was in on that was where Mark Hamill comes in the bar, and he's with a bunch of, I guess they're vampires. They come in the bar. I'm at the table next to the entrance when he comes into the bar, and then something happens. I forget now. And I get up, and we have to like applaud or something, and we're like in a group by like there's a band or something on stage, so we're in the crowd standing there, the band on stage. So yeah, I'm at the table when you first come into the bar, and I'm in the crowd with the band. I think that's about it. It's so good. I'm rewatching and just saw that episode. I'll watch again. Let you know if I see you. Okay. There's a TV show called October Faction. I'm in that. I can't remember the episode number though, but I am at a table where I'm at a table with this other guy who is, we're talking about the laboratory or whatever it is. It was quite some time ago, so I don't remember all the details, but I'm sitting at a table opposite this guy and we're interviewing this one of the main actors about the situation that's happening at this lab or whatever it is. And so I'm his partner, and you can fully see me in that scene. And that was it. But you can totally see me in that scene. I was also in Rookie Blue. You can see me there. I played a cop for several seasons. I think one full season at the beginning, the first season, and a part of the second season. I was also in Suits. You can see me a lot in that for the first full season, and then a little bit after that. And the last season, you can see me quite a bit in that. But I mean, it isn't easy to find me, so I don't blame you if you don't. You just did a Katy Perry What Happened? I did? What? Okay, right. React, bye. Thanks for joining us. I love comedy. Were you in any comedies? We don't really have like sitcoms here in Canada. Sitcoms are usually filmed in the States in the studios, so they don't usually film them here, but we have a couple of Canadian comedies I was on. But yeah, I'm like so lost in the background, you won't see me. The one that was like Kim's Convenience, I was on that. And then the other comedy was what was the name of the show? Spin, something about spin. It was like a PR company, and they spin the story or whatever. Anyway, I was on that. I was in the cafe. But yeah, we don't really have. I mean, I think Suits was labeled a comedy, kind of comedy drama. But yeah, we don't have sitcoms here, and usually sitcoms, they don't have a lot of background in sitcoms. But anyhow, yeah, that's about it. Any final thoughts, statements, comments, anything you want to talk about before I end this? Guess not. Has anybody seen Oppenheimer? Has everybody seen it for who's gonna see it? Really enjoyed your Woman on the Plane Decode. Look forward to your videos and live streams. Thank you. Thanks, Andrea. Yeah, that was sort of a decode, but it is not. It's not as deep as it. It was more of an intro to lay the territory of what the story is, because it's so all over the place. But I did a video after that to heavy decode, and I've been working this week on the Maui decode, and that one's intense. That one is an hour long, pretty much. It could have been longer. There's so much to cover, and I can't possibly cover it all. But the thing about the Maui decode is that it's a decode. Well, all of these are like you saw in the Woman on the Plane video. the one that I just put out, a lot of it was about the deception. So because there's two levels of what I cover is the deception, and then there's the decode, the hidden messages underneath. So I think it's important to address the deception as well, because, you know, like, why are they doing this? It's part of the story in a way. Like, why are they doing this? Why are they putting this information out there? What is this? Because that in itself is part of the message. The contradictory information, the is she, like, what is she? Is this AI? Is she real? Are there two people? What's going on? Why are they giving us different information? Why are they spreading it out like this? Why are there people getting involved? You know, the way the information is delivered is part of the message. So that's part of the decode in a sense. But it's also in a lot of ways that's like the conspiracy level, but taking it a little bit further and saying, okay, well, this is happening, is usually at the conspiracy level, is usually, well, this is happening, this person said this, but this person said this. And then taking it a step further and saying, well, why? What's going on? Why are they putting this information out like this? What's the tactic that they're using? Are they, you know, why are they manipulating us in this fashion? And then incorporating that into the story and what the story is telling us. So the next part in the series tells you how that plays into the hidden story. TikTok guy was fascinating. Yeah, like the TikTok guy, he is fascinating because, like I showed, the hidden messages in his speech are very revealing. And he's come out, you know, like the fact that he went viral and he came out with a fake story, told you it was fake, and the things that he said in his message, you know, revealing hidden codes, and to see how that unfolded reveals what, like, whether or not he's legitimate. Is he part of it? Is he in on it? Like, to me, this takes crisis actor to a whole new level. We're used to the event, and then the people who come out at the event, and the news goes there and interviews them, and they give their account on the scene, basically. But this is unprecedented. Like, this takes it to a whole new level, and this is why I'm fascinated by it. And I can tell there's a small group of people who are fascinated with the Tiffany Gomez story, and then there are people who don't care at all. You should care, not because it's Tiffany Gomez, not about her story. It's about why they're putting it in the consciousness. Why are they putting it in the news? Why are they bringing it to your attention? What is it telling you? And so if you want to understand, you know, where you are, who you are, why you're here, this is part of it. So if it's something that you haven't cared about and haven't watched, I encourage you to watch it. I encourage you to pay attention to what's going on with this and the Maui fires, like all of it. I don't talk about stuff that I don't think is important. So it's the way they're going about it. Same with the Maui fires. The way they're disseminating the information is very different from what we're used to, and I'm fascinated by it. And I want to know why they're doing it this way. And I'm paying close attention because it's as if things have shifted a bit. It's like it's gotten a little harder to detect. It's like they're blurring the lines between fiction and reality, what's real, what's not. And they're testing you to see, you know, testing your discernment to see how much you can see and how good you are detecting what's really going on. Because especially with the Maui fires, there's so much out there, and it's so confusing, and it's so convoluted, and there's so many people getting their 2 cents in. Most people don't know what to believe, but most people are relying on a handful of social media people to get their information. And it's, to me, it's fascinating because I don't believe any of it. I don't believe any of it. Crisis influencers. That's a good phrase. I like it. But yeah, that's exactly what they are. But yeah, I think, I don't know what the impression of this is, because normally I would put this sort of thing on my second channel because it's like news based, but it isn't news. It's kind of like a social phenomenon. And like, what is this? Why is there such a big focus on this? And why is there such a big focus on Maui? And, my videos will tell you why and show you why. And it isn't what you think it is. So it probably isn't what you think it is. Someone called them catastrophe thespians. I like that because it would bypass any, check, any AI checkers that scan for the typical phrases. Catastrophe thespians. I like it. Crisis influencers, tragedy players. But yeah, catastrophe thespians is quite eloquent. So yeah, I guess nobody has anything else to add. But yeah, if you like my content, then it'd be great if you become a member. And I'm going to be releasing another video tomorrow. The Maui fires will be released tomorrow on my website. And like I said, it's an hour long, 50 minutes, and quite a bit in. It's heavy. It's intense. There's a lot in there. And I don't know if I'll be able to release that one because there's publicly, because there's so much. There's quite a bit in it that's triggering for the masses. And if the masses find it, they might, not like it. So I'm considering whether or not I should release it eventually. So if you want to make sure you see it, you're going to become a member. And then after that, I'm going to be working on the Burning Man. So there's going to be a Burning Man decode, and then I'm moving to Barbenheimer. So Barbie first and then Oppenheimer. So I got my work cut out for me. And who's the TikTok guy? Be more specific. The TikTok guy is the Cole Show. In the Tiffany Gomez Woman on the Plane video I just put out, he is the Cole Show, and he came out to he came out with a fake story saying that he was on her plane, on her flight, and the guy sitting next to her, the not real guy, turned around and winked at him, but he winked sideways, not this way. And so people believed him, and he did it all as a social experiment, so he says. But the way that he worded it, he didn't say that his video was a social experiment. He said this little woman on the plane saga was a social experiment, which to me says that he's in on it and it's part of the show, and the whole thing is a social experiment. Yeah. So yeah. I guess that's everything. Thank you very much for joining me. It's been a good chat. I enjoyed it. Some really good conversations, and yeah, some really odd things we talked about today. Some really different things, but it's all good. Okay. right. Well, thanks for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.